everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Anti-Pharmacist podcast. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas in advance once again. I hope that your week started well. I hope you had a nice day today being Monday, and I hope that it sets a nice tone for your week as usual. So today I'll be talking about plastic toxicity. You know that plastics have become mainstay in society. There's hardly any household that doesn't use plastic. The world over, not only in Nigeria, in many countries of the world. But these substances have been found to be toxic to the environment in that most of them are not biodegradable. That is, they cannot be destroyed. Because of this, they cause a lot of environmental hazards. They pollute the environment. They block waterways. There are some environment that you get to, you just see how plastic has destroyed the whole place. There's flooding. The plastics are floating all over the place. They constitute eyesores in most places that you see them. And it's like people do not really care about the disposal of these things. As long as they have been used, they just throw them out and think that's the end. But no, it impacts the environment and even our health, which is why I'll be discussing today about this plastic toxicity, the types of plastics that are available, because a lot of people just think that is those whitish, transparent containers that we have at home that are plastics. There are so many things, so many classes of plastics that you may not be aware of, but that you will be learning and be knowing on today's episode. Also, the consequences of this plastic toxicity to our health, to the health of adults and children. Then, regulations for plastic usage in the world, like in different countries of the world. Then, we'll be talking about alternatives to plastics. And lastly, recycling process for plastics, okay? So, expect a full package on today's episode. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Firstly, let me explain what plastics are. Okay, plastics are synthetic or semi-synthetic organic compounds, okay, that can be molded into solid objects. They are malleable, okay, meaning that they can bend. That property is called plasticity, from which I believe the name plastic is coined, okay. There is ability to permanently deform without breaking. So you can squeeze it, you can bend it, but it still wouldn't break. That's what plastics are, okay? And let me just tell you a brief history of plastic usage, okay? It dates back to the 19th century when a scientist called Alexander Parks created a material known as Parkinson. That was in 1862. Now, Parkinson became the first prototype of plastic, and it was made from cellulose treated with nitric acid and camphor. Those are chemicals, okay? After this innovation, the use of plastic was limited to laboratory experiments, but in 1907, another scientist, Leo Hendrik Baekeland, invented Bakelite, which is the first mass-produced synthetic plastic. Now, Bakelite transformed the industrial landscape, and plastics found versatile usage in household appliances, even up to the automotive industry. With advancing technology and growing industrial needs, plastic now became predominant material, and they were mass produced during the 20th century. But in contemporary times, this 21st century, there is increased awareness of the environmental impact of excessive plastic use. So there is need to curb our usage of it and to be aware of the damage it is doing to the environment, which is the major aim of my podcast. There are about 7 types of plastic, okay? What you may think is plastic may not be all there is to it, okay? We know the normal plastic containers we used to buy food at restaurants. That's just one of them, okay? There are many others that are plastic, but you may not have thought they are, okay? There's the polyethylene terephthalate. That's what we call PET. It's used for beverage bottles, for food packaging, the normal one that we used to buy food in the restaurant. Then there is high density polyethylene for milk jugs, for detergent bottles, for toys. Another one is polyvinyl chloride. This is very common. It is used in plumbing, the pipes, for medical equipment, PVC as it's commonly called, and it is the most hazardous of these plastic types. There's another one called low density polyethylene, used for plastic bags, shrink wraps, your electronics, those things that they come in that you pop and be playing with. That's an example of low density polyethylene. There's another one, polystyrene. It's used for foam cups, packaging materials. Those styrofoams that we used to eat in restaurants that were banned recently in Lagos State at least, and some other parts of the world. That is it. Then the last one is polypropylene, PP, for food containers as well, for some parts of vehicles, for some medical devices. Okay. Then there are other plastics that are called polycarbonate. They are used in lenses of eyeglasses and in some electronics as well. All of these are classified as plastics, and we are exposed to them every day. There is hardly anyone who doesn't use plastics or who doesn't have plastic in their homes, okay? Either as utensils in the kitchen, as containers for food, to store spices, carriage materials. Maybe you went to the restaurant, you went to get your groceries, you most likely will use the plastic to pack. Your car parts have plastics all around them. Your children toys, they have plastics. Most of them are even plastics. Your baby dolls, your toy cars, they are plastics, right? Your electronics, they are plastics. You buy a new furniture, they are wrapped in plastics. Those nylons. So plastics are everywhere in our environment. We can't do without them as it is now because of industrialization, of advancement in technology, like I mentioned earlier. But we can control how we use them so that they do not impact us and the environment negatively. Now, what makes these plastics toxic, you may wonder? I told you that they are synthetic or semi-synthetic materials. They were made in the industry through various processes of merging different organic compounds together. They are poly-organic compounds. They contain compounds like bisphenol A, phthalates. They contain additives like flame retardants, which are toxic because exposure to these things are linked to many developmental, neurological, even cancer issues. They also contain microplastics, which are breakdown of larger plastics into smaller particles. They can be ingested by marine life like fish, like your crabs in the sea, in the ocean. They find their way into the human food chain. They also contain endocrine disrupting substances or chemicals. They cause hormonal imbalances, reproductive issues, like I said, cancers. They also contain toxins like dioxins, furans, toxic metals, organic substances, acid gases. So all of this impacts the body, your health. They could lead to cardiovascular diseases, neurodegenerative diseases. They could lead to chronic inflammation. They could lead to diabetes and even cancer. So these are the dangers of plastics, okay? Now, like I said, plastics are everywhere in our environment, and children toys are majorly made of plastics, right? Reduce the exposure to plastic because babies, toddlers, they munch on these things, they eat them, rub them on their bodies, so they impact both children and adult health. In children, these plastics can affect hormone production, brain development. It could lead to abnormal brain function in children. It could lead to diseases like autism spectrum disorder in children, ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperkinetic disorders. It could cause hormonal imbalances. It could cause eye defects, a lot of things. It could cause indigestion, it could cause skin rashes, and in adults, it could cause respiratory issues, hormonal disruptions, increased risk of cancers. Like I've said, it impacts the environment, okay? It causes pollution, it harms wildlife. Those are consequences of plastic toxicity. Now, these have been examined over the years by environmentalists in different countries, and some regulations have been put in place by various countries, okay, to control plastic consumption or plastic usage and their disposal. Some countries have banned plastics altogether and have advocated for usage of alternatives. Countries like Canada, Sri Lanka banned plastics in 2023. China banned plastic in 2022. Others like Rwanda banned it since 2008. Kenya banned plastic since 2017. Bangladesh as far as 2002. France has banned it since 2020. Italy since 2011. India has banned plastic since 2017. Thailand banned it in 2020. In the United States, 8 states have banned plastic so far. Countries like Chile, Eritrea have all banned plastics up to date. And I talked about polystyrene as a form of plastic. That is how styrofoams are made. And recently in Nigeria, Lagos State banned the use of styrofoams in restaurants, and people were advised to bring reusable plastics from their homes if they want to buy foods. And I think this is a welcome development because Lagos State is highly populated. The consumption of plastic there is on another level. And if you see landfills where they keep these plastics, it's an eyesore. It is so bad. And these things are not biodegradable, remember? Meaning that they cannot be destroyed. They stay in the environment for so long. They cannot be destroyed by microorganisms. If you even burn them, they will not be completely destroyed. They'll release some harmful gases to the environment and they'll still remain. There will be residues from them. I know that banning of styrofoam is just the first step in the right direction. There will still be ban of other plastic materials, which is why we should be thinking towards recycling of these materials or the safe usage of them, okay, so that we don't have too many of them in the environment. Countries that have banned styrofoam are plenty as well. Rwanda has also banned styrofoam since 2009, Denmark and France in 2020, Taiwan and Thailand in 2022, Kenya banned styrofoam in 2020, Seychelles in 2014, Haiti in 2012, Hungary and Iceland in 2021, Dominican Republic in 2019, Antigua and Barbuda in 2016. So it is only fitting that Nigeria follows suit. I also know that styrofoams have been banned in Abia State, and I'm hoping that other states in Nigeria will follow suit. These things are not banned for fun. It's because of the hazards they can cause to the environment. I've told you the consequences of plastic toxicity. How does plastic enter the human body? There are many ways. Number 1, breathing and inhaling fumes near burning plastic trash. Another one, smelling plastic items that have a strong odor. Applying body lotion stored in plastic containers. We all know that most of our body lotions are in plastic containers. Drinking hot beverage from a styrofoam cup. Remember your coffees? Remember your teas? Yes. Remember your party packs? All those party cups. Reusing plastic water bottles. Eating microwave food that have been heated in plastic container. Eating frozen food stored in a plastic container. Consuming food stored in plastic container for a long period. Eating fish and other seafood contaminated with plastic toxins present in seawater. These are ways in which we ingest plastic every day. And you and me both know that these are the things that we do all the time. You see, plastics cannot be phased out completely from the environment, at least for now. But we can phase it out little by the practices that we do. Okay? Now, the United Nations is working on making sure that plastic producers take responsibility for their products from production till end usage and till recycling, because these things are causing more harm to the environment if we are being honest, and plastics have become an integral part of human life. There's hardly anything we use without plastics being there. So the aim is not to phase out plastic completely, but to be sure that their harm to the environment is minimized. Okay, so there's a plastics treaty that is being propounded by the United Nations, okay, to end plastic pollution. It's still underway, okay, but I hope that it will help the environment in the long run and countries will comply. Now, if we do not use plastics, or if we reduce the usage of plastics, what do we then use? You may wonder. There are alternatives to plastics, okay? We can use biodegradable materials like the polylactic acid and other biodegradable plastics. It's not like there are no plastics that are biodegradable. Well, they form about just 7% of all plastics. So we must focus on these ones that are really biodegradable, make more of them while reducing the production of the non-biodegradable ones, okay? Then there are other reusable products like reusable bags, bottles, containers, okay? There is aluminium foil, okay? You can use that for getting your foods. You know those ones they put small chops in these days instead of using plastics, okay? You could use plant-based materials like the one they used to make moi moi. Instead of you using those nylon bags to make your moi moi, you can use plants. That's a way moi moi. For those that do not understand Yoruba, that's the leaf that they used to put bean pudding. Yeah. Then there are recyclable bottles, like I said. There are paper bags that you could use. One way I've tried to limit plastic consumption in my house is by having bags for shopping, okay, that are not plastics. Instead of you going out to a supermarket, to a restaurant, and they putting your things inside those their plastics, you could opt that no, you don't have to put it. I brought my own bag. Bring your bag and let them put your things inside it. Do you understand? That way you are not polluting the environment more. Or if you have just one plastic bag, make sure that that's the one that you use instead of acquiring more and storing them at home. You understand? Then there are other natural materials that you could use in place of plastic, like cotton, like glass, like metals. You see, I've noticed that in some European countries, like Turkey, for example, you hardly see plastic bottles of water. They have glass. Glass bottles is what they use, okay? Those are better than plastics, okay? Those can be reusable, they can be recycled easily with less harm to the humans and the environment. Now, let's look at plastic recycling, okay? It's a thing and it's something that you should also be involved in. How to recycle plastic so that it can have another use and it will not constitute a pollutant in the environment. So, plastic recycling is the process of recovering waste plastic or scrap plastics and reprocessing them into materials that are useful. Sometimes it can be completely different from the original state, okay? The final product can be used in another way, and even the final product can also be recycled again, okay? There's this news I saw recently of a woman, a former banker, who now recycles tires. That's the kind of plastic, recycles tires to make different things, slippers, children playing ground. That's one way of recycling plastic and saving the environment. There are other ways. There are many processes involved in recycling, okay? There is primary, secondary, and tertiary recycling. There is the way of sorting plastic according to their resin types. They either use manual or mechanized processes, okay? They even sort them by color sometimes, and they do mechanical recycling where the plastic is washed, ground, melted, or they could do chemical recycling where plastic is broken down into their monomers to form new polymers and to be reused to make other products. These are done on an industrial scale, okay? So recycling cannot happen without a large body taking care of it. You cannot say you want to recycle plastic on your own in your house, which is why you should just minimize how you use your plastic, okay? Because once you have used it, it is already used, and reusing it can still constitute a problem. I've talked about storing things in plastic, microwaving using plastics. There are only a few plastics that you can actually use in the microwave without any danger, okay? When you look under each plastic, number 5, number 12, they are safe, but most of them are not, and people may not pay attention to them. So the best way is minimize your use of plastic, and the recycling is left to the industry and to the government. The government is already taking care of that. I've talked about UN treaty, involving countries, involving states, in which makers of this plastic are held responsible, where you would use a plastic and there will be collection centers for them so that it can return to the manufacturer and it can be recycled by the manufacturer for another safer product. Do you understand? Yes. So I hope that we get to that point, at least in Nigeria, where we have proper waste disposal. Once you have used your plastic, you have places that you can keep them. But in the meantime, reduce the number of plastics that you have in your house by looking at the alternatives that I've mentioned in order to reduce the health effects and to reduce plastic toxicity to you and the environment. Now, like I said, not all plastics can be recycled. A few examples of plastics that can be recycled are the polyethylene terephthalate, like the ones for water bottles, plastic trays, the high density polyethylene, like those for shampoo bottles, for milk cartons, those linings inside milk that will be like nylon once you remove or you tear the carton. Then the polypropylene, like margarine tubs, ready meal trays, those are the ones that can be recycled. Then there are some that they can only be recycled in even more specialist facilities, like your PVC, your plumbing pipes, your low density polyethylene, the ones we use to carry our food and groceries, your polystyrene, your plastic cutlery, your plastic forks, your plastic spoons. Those ones, they need even higher process of recycling, okay? And there are some plastics that cannot be recycled. The others that I have not mentioned. So please reduce your use of plastics altogether. All in all, what you can do to reduce plastic toxicity in the environment is trying as much as possible to reduce your use of plastics by using alternatives like biodegradable plastics, by using papers, by using plant-based materials, using cotton materials, okay, using bottles, using some metals like aluminum foil instead of using plastics, and reducing the number of plastics that you have at home. Instead of giving your children toy plastics, why not give them cloth dolls if they must use dolls? Do you understand? So please be mindful of your usage of plastics from now on, okay? So that you will not be exposed to the dangers of plastic toxicity. And that's what I have for you on today's episode. I hope that you've learned something. I know that it may not be easy to be mindful of all of these things, and some would argue that we have been exposed to them all our lives and nothing has happened. Well, times are changing. The environment is not like it used to be in those days. Nature has a way of compensating for things, okay? But now when nature itself is disrupted through the different practices that we are doing through industrialization, the protective components of nature may have been depleted. So you may not have the privilege that our forefathers have, in that they are able to resist some things in the environment. Immunities are lower now. The environment is more polluted now. Nature is not as it used to be. Weathers are changing. So we have to be more careful because we are more exposed than they were then. Okay? So please take cognizance of all of these things. It's for your own good, so that you can live a healthy, stress-free life. Okay, that's why all of these are being brought to you. My aim is that you stay healthy at all times. Minimize your exposure to anything that will compromise your health, and you'll be all the better for it. Thank you so much for listening up to this point. Once again, I want to remind you to always share, to like, to subscribe to this podcast. And please, guys, what happened to the reviews? Please leave reviews, okay? Those stars that you could click. A 5-star will not be bad. Even a 4 I would accept from you, okay? Please do not forget to review the podcast as you're commenting, as you're sharing, as you're liking, as you're listening. Also review. Of course, continue to engage us on our social media platforms, okay? On Facebook, Anti-Pharmacist Podcast, on Instagram, Anti-Pharmacist Podcast, on LinkedIn, on X, Fan Podcaster. You could also message me via mails, okay? For collaborations, Anti-Pharmacist Podcast @gmail.com. Thank you so much. I'll be doing my Spotify Wrapped very soon, okay? I think I should make that an episode. Maybe not, I don't know yet, but we'll see how it goes. Once again, Merry Christmas in advance. Till next time, stay healthy and God bless you.